let's talk about science. Jacob Christian Jacobsen. He's our champion of industry today. He's the father of Christian Jacobsen, a small-time brewer from Jutland in Denmark. Christian began work in Copenhagen at the King's Head Brewery before finding enough time and money to set up one of his own. In 1826, Christian Jacobsen set up the Jacobsen Brewery, and not before long was he a leading name in the Danish brewing industry. Christian was a lover of science, and despite having no formal education, he'd regularly spend any free time he had at the lectures of H.C. Ørsted, the father of electromagnetism. He was fascinated by technology and using the latest techniques and equipment in his brewing. He was the first brewer in Denmark, for example, to use a thermometer, a piece of equipment we see as vital to any brewing process today. From a young age, Jacob Christian Jacobsen, his son, attended the lectures with him, and it was there that Jacob found his love for science and for brewing. In 1935, Jacob's father died, and he was left with the production and management of the brewing all on his own. Not long after that, his mother died and left Jacob with a huge cash fortune. He spent the next few years travelling Europe, finding out about the different beers. He went to Hamburg to find out about the techniques before moving south and going to Bavaria to try their Bavarian lagers, where he fell in love with a woman, with beer. He fell in love with beer. He got home and set up a test plant in the cellar of his brewery, where he conducted unusual experiments to try and create a different type of beer from the really dark beers they were having in Denmark at the time. He headed back to Germany to study the cold bottom fermenting brewing process they used there to produce a clear and fresh lager, compared with the dense dark ones they were drinking at the time back home. In 1945 he went to Munich to the Zum Späten brewery to get a sample of their lager yeast, their special bottom yeast. This needed to be kept fresh from the massive journey from Munich back up to Copenhagen, so he kept it in a tin in his hat box, and at any station during the train ride home he'd run out of the train and cool it down with ice cold water before getting back on and continuing the journey. He got it back safely, and in 1946 he produced 300 barrels of Bavarian lager, and the Danes loved it. 300 barrels per brew wasn't enough for JC, however, so he used his mother's inheritance to start up his own brewery building with abundant fresh water and storage for 20,000 barrels. He had Denmark's best architects design it for him. He named it after his son, Carl, and the hill it was built on. The Carlsberg Brewery was born. Production continued and sales were huge. JC was always determined to use the most advanced technology he could, just like his dad, and he was one of the first people to use Carl von Linde's refrigeration techniques. JC would not only train his staff how to use the machines and how to brew beer, but also teach them the science behind it, so they knew that every single process, from start to finish, was so important in the brewing process. In 1986, Carlsberg began exporting, with one test sample sent to Scotland, to a greengrocer's. He sure did know how to get his name out there, but in Scotland they drank it with whiskey. Don't blame him. No, whiskey, no. That's just weird, that's disgusting. The next year JC sent his beer to Rangoon for distribution around India before sending it to Calcutta, Hong Kong and Singapore. And in 1978 he won the Grand Prix. Obviously not that. At the World Trade Exhibition in Vienna. He wanted to leave a legacy for his passion for science, and so he created the Carlsberg Laboratory, where he hired Denmark and the world's best scientists to come in and to find more about the brewing, fermentation and malting processes behind beer. And he set up the Carlsberg Foundation, which supports all facets of Danish scientific research. In 1882, JC suggested that Carl concentrate more on porters to try and regain the Danes' love for it. Carl thought this was a horrendous idea, fell out with his dad and went off to start the New Carlsberg Brewery, and went into competition with his own dad. This rift continued for 5 or 6 years before it was reconciled, a year before JC's death, aged 75. He was a scientist who had a passion for constantly improving his product to achieve that impossible dream, the perfect pint. In his own words, Jacob Christian Jacobsen lived to develop the art of making beer to the greatest possible degree of perfection. And although Carlsberg perhaps today isn't seen in the same light as it was back then, I think we can all appreciate the passion that he had. JC paved the way for the world's great lagers, and made brewing more than just a hobby. He made it a science, and for that, I raise my Carlsberg to him. This has been Champions of Industry. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed learning all about the father of Carlsberg. As I said, I know it's not maybe the best lager in the world, but Carlsberg Export is actually really nice, and I do enjoy it. It's probably one of my favourite supermarket lagers to buy in bulk, so I can have 10 in a night and just go insane. If you've enjoyed this Champions of Industry, you're probably going to love the Arthur Guinness one, it's just down there. And if you didn't manage to catch up on American beers from Wednesday's American Beer Geek, it's just there. Don't forget to subscribe. And we have got a brand new Facebook page, as I said last time, where you can find exclusive episodes, beer reviews, outtakes, all stuff like that. The link's in the description below. Don't forget to comment. And I'd love for you guys to suggest beers for me to drink or things for me to talk about. So if you're wondering, hey Ollie, what the hell is IPA? Well, you haven't clearly watched them before. But if you've got a beer that you feel passionately about, or just want me to try because you think it's really gross, then just drop me a comment and I'll see if I can find it. I'll see you guys next time.